has never been a love story like it in all of history, the love of this people for that city. Jerusalem is mentioned something like 660 times in Tanakh.
Jerusalem, the most talked about city at one point, became silent. No one was interested in the ancient city, and it was so normal until a few decades ago when everything changed and all eyes were on Israel and Jerusalem again, just like before, and maybe even better. Immediately, researchers and even religious leaders started digging out long-time prophecies that could align with what was happening and what is happening now. Could there be a prophecy backing this up, and is there a deeper meaning to this attention they were getting?
And even though the temple was destroyed twice, and even though the city has been besieged 23 times and captured and reconquered 44 times, Jews never ceased.
Grab a snack as we explore Jerusalem's hidden prophecy and what the rabbis just announced that shocked the whole world. Rabbis seeking to rule the world. A man named Ashkenazi, also referred to as Chief Rabbi Kalman Ber, is on a journey to build up the Chief Rabbinate, an institution which is often seen as stuck in its ways. The rabbinate plays a very important function of shaping the Jewish identity of the state, giving an admirable influence over various aspects of Israel's life. It also sets the standards for kashrut in both the private and public sectors, holding rights to Jewish marriages and overseeing the system of the court that handles critical matters like conversions, politics, and divorce. Although Ber has a vision for reforming many of these areas, he does not want to do it in a radical way. Well known for his ability to make peace, he strongly believes that most of the challenges faced in the world can be tackled through behind-the-scenes collaboration, innocent of public disputes that don't end well. In one of the interviews he had with the media, he said, "It's not enough to simply call someone my brother. Every night, before bed, we should all think about whether we've done something to help someone outside our own community." He further stated that in order to truly make a difference, there is a need to interpret words into meaningful actions. As the chief rabbi, he believes this means giving open arms to the Jews from all backgrounds and making sure the rabbinate is highly accessible to a broad spectrum of people. He had this spirit in mind, and he is interested in making changes in how the rabbinate sees marriage, with the goal of reversing the trend of increasing numbers of Israeli couples choosing to do without wedding ceremonies through the rabbinate, which is the only legal avenue for Jewish marriages in Israel. He also said, "One of the ways I'll measure my success is by bringing more couples to marry through the rabbinate," already noting that he has already formed a team that develops a practical plan. In addition, Ber is committed to introducing kashrut reforms that he believes will streamline bureaucracy, expand options, and reduce costs for those seeking to observe dietary laws. For a lot of Israelis, the chief rabbinate is seen as an institution that is set to cause issues, with over 50% of the public not recognizing it as a legitimate religious or spiritual authority, according to a 2024 survey by the Israel Democracy Institute. Rabbi Ber defended the importance of the rabbinate and maintaining the country's Jewish identity, while also talking about the need for personal religious freedom. In the same interview, he stated, "The state must have a Jewish character because our forefathers came here with that vision in mind. On a personal level, everyone should have the freedom to practice as they wish, and I would be the first to speak out against anyone being forced to comply with specific dictates." During the interview, he also talked about his strong relationship with many secular Jews and expressed a desire to connect with Jews in the diaspora as well. However, he was quite critical of non-Orthodox Jewish movements, stating they challenge the core foundations of our religion. What he said seemed practicy to target Reform Judaism specifically. So many people in the Orthodox community often use the word reform as a term for all non-Orthodox movements, giving a general unfamiliarity with the many Jewish thoughts that exist in the diaspora, but are largely outside the Israeli country. Ber also talked about his views on the war in Gaza, discussing how Israel should act as a light to the nations, especially concerning the protection of Druze in Syria. When the media asked whether he considered the conflict in Gaza a milhemet mitzvah, a concept in Jewish law describing a divinely sanctioned war that Jews are obligated to engage in, he vehemently affirmed that a war against an entity intent on Israel's destruction should indeed be regarded as such. The pressure was getting too much, but some other leaders have consistently stopped giving up the long-standing blanket extensions from the military service that the Haredi community has traditionally enjoyed. Just after the Supreme Court's ruling declaring these exemptions illegal, the Haredi community has sought to push through controversial legislation to officially enshrine these exemptions in law, instead of seeking a compromise on the issue. This has turned the situation into a very controversial topic that could go as far as jeopardizing Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's government. When the media proceeded to ask about the draft crisis, Rabbi Ber chose not to weigh in directly. He stated, "Right now, we have a problem, and here at the Chief Rabbinate, we are working in private ways, not through the media, to find a solution. Having served as a city rabbi for many years, I know that many issues can only be resolved when approached behind the scenes. Otherwise, there's little chance of success." Rabbi Ber has positioned himself for a long time as a bridge among various communities, which shows the ability to connect different worlds. He was born in Tel Aviv in 1957 and is a descendant of renowned rabbis from both Hasidic and non-Hasidic traditions. He studied and later taught in national religious institutions, including Yeshivat Kerem B'Yavne, where young men balance military service with Torah study. Ber had served as a combat soldier in the Nahal Brigade. One of his two sons has already completed military service, while the other is currently focused on full-time Torah study but thinks about enlisting in the future. In 2014, he was appointed Chief Rabbi of Netanya, where he encouraged positive relationships amongst several communities, from the Sanz Hasidic group, popular in the city, to its many secular residents. In October, the 150-member committee, which was responsible for appointing the chief rabbis and made up of about 80 rabbis and 70 public officials, selected him over the more hardline religious Zionist rabbi Misha Halevi. Ber's selection was followed by a coalition that included the ultra-Orthodox United Torah Judaism Party, the moderate National Religious Rabbinical Organization Tzohar, and many other secular committee members. But then Rabbi Misha Halevi received support from Bezalel Smotrich's Religious Zionism Party and the influential Sephardi Haredi party Shas. Right now, he serves as the head of the Chief Rabbinate Council, which advises all governmental bodies on Jewish matters, while his Sephardi counterpart, named Chief Rabbi David Yosef, is the president of the Grand Rabbinical Court, which oversees the country's rabbinical courts. They are scheduled to switch roles after 5 years of service. During an interview, he made a statement about being a rabbi and sectarian. A rabbi cannot be sectarian. Just as the president of the state may come from a political party but must rise above partisanship to serve all citizens, a chief rabbi must also transcend divisions. If he remains only a rabbi for his own group, he fails in his mission. To truly fulfill his role, a rabbi must be a rabbi for everyone. The rabbi had done a lot of things that revealed the signs of a hidden prophecy in Jerusalem, but something more spectacular has happened that brings more questions coming in. So, aside from the rabbis, what has been another sign of the hidden prophecy? Let's explore it quickly. Preparation for the Third Temple. Some commendable efforts were made by the Muslim community to challenge the historic connection between ancient Judea and the modern Jewish state. But the work towards building a third temple still continues, which includes the creation of temple vessels and the training of the Levites and priests made for the temple service. To determine the Jewish claim to the Temple Mount, the Jerusalem Islamic Authority, also known as the Waqf, was accused of covering up or destroying even the smallest evidence of the First and Second Holy Temples. The Waqf, which takes full administration of the site, has reportedly discarded the ancient and invaluable remains of the Beit HaMikdash temple in public landfills, showing little regard for the significant historical artifacts they are eliminating in the process. Since the Israeli government granted control of the Temple Mount to the Waqf in 1967, the Waqf, in collaboration with Israeli police, has effectively restricted access for Jews and Christians, sometimes even banning them from the site altogether. In spite of these enforced limitations, a lot of Jews continue to pray daily. May it be your will that the temple be speedily rebuilt in our own time, a prayer that people had been reciting since the destruction of the last Jewish temple by the Roman general Titus in AD 70. In recent years, several organizations have managed to combine their prayers with actionable efforts. According to Chaim Richman, the director of the Temple Institute in Jerusalem, which is located not far from the Western Wall in the Old City, a temple in waiting has primarily already been established. The Institute has already produced more than 60 temple vessels that will be really important for worship in the anticipated rebuilt temple. Among these items are the high priest's breastplate, featuring the 12 precious stones representing the tribes of Israel, as well as the musical instruments needed for the Levitical choir. Also, the Institute has prepared the priestly garments. These garments are set to adorn a new generation of Levitical priests, also named Kohanim, who are already undergoing training for their future roles in the temple service. A Kohen, who is literally a priest, is a status that is directly conferred to Aaron, a Levite, and his descendants. Levitical priests are thus those Jews who can trace their ancestry back to the tribe of Levi and are direct descendants of Aaron, the brother of Moses. Recently, Cohen is a common Jewish surname, which often indicates a potential connection to Aaron's bloodline. While the Kohanim were responsible for a lot of sacrificial duties, the Levites, who were not descendants of Aaron, were tasked with the care of the temple, including its vessels and furnishings. It has been nearly 95 years since Jerusalem's chief Rabbi Kook had been reported in a British publication to have established Torat Kohanim, a yeshiva school for Orthodox rabbinic studies aimed at training Levites for service in a future rebuilt temple. The training at Kook's institution reportedly included serious participation in temple sacrifices, as it mirrored the practices of the first and second temples. When he was questioned by a Jerusalem Zionist executive, the chief rabbi said that his institution functioned essentially as a Torah academy. He also acknowledged the fact that the recent establishment of a Palestinian mandate, which provided Jews with a homeland in the ancient land of Israel, was a manifestation of divine providence that made the impossible seem possible. In essence, he had suggested that the rebuilding of the temple now appeared possible, given the Jewish return to their homeland. The chief rabbi concluded on a hopeful note, stating, "So too, the day will come when all nations will recognize the truth of our rights to the temple area. All will know and acknowledge that the prophetic vision regarding this holy place, that my house will be called a house of prayer for all the nations, will only be fulfilled when this great holy house is established there, in the hands of its original, eternal owners, the people of Israel, God's people from time immemorial. They and no other." Now, we have looked at the third temple, but as it keeps unfolding, we also have to look at another one we didn't see coming. Let us explore this animal sacredly created for the hidden prophecy to come true: the red heifer and its connection to the prophecy. In a few recent months, there has been serious discussion about red heifers being raised in Israel. These heifers have gathered interest because one of the last requirements for rebuilding a Jewish temple on the Temple Mount is the ashes from a red heifer for the purpose of purification. The red heifers that are currently under scrutiny were born on a ranch in Texas and were transported to Tel Aviv, Israel, in September 2022. They were privately acquired with the expectation that they would eventually allow for the normal purification and sanctification of the priests who will serve in a future Jewish temple on the Temple Mount. In Old Testament Israel, God instructed that the priests who offered sacrifices at the temple be ceremonially pure. This ritual cleaning involved water mixed with the ashes of a perfect red heifer that was without a stain. According to Numbers, chapter 19 and verse 2, God specifically stated that the red heifer must be without defect, in which there is no blemish, and on which a yoke has never come. Fortunately, the requirements for a red heifer were met during the times of the First and Second Temples, but after the Romans destroyed their Second Temple in AD 70, and the Jewish people were scattered for nearly 1,900 years, there was little reason to look for red heifers as the temple no longer existed and sacrifices could no longer be made. The rebirth of the nation of Israel in 1948 stirred up the desire among Orthodox Jews to rebuild the temple in Jerusalem. Right now, this aspiration faces significant challenges due to the Temple Mount being under Islamic administration. This 35-acre platform is overseen by Muslim authorities and consists of sacred Islamic structures, which include mosques and the Dome of the Rock. These are a lot of obstacles, but some of the Orthodox Jewish groups made a commitment to make the rebuilding of the temple a huge reality. The most important among them is the Temple Institute, which has already created the necessary tools and furniture for the next temple. A large gold menorah, constructed according to Mosaic specifications, is now fully displayed in the Old City of Jerusalem. A new generation of priests are being trained to fulfill their sacred roles, and unique garments have been prepared for them. There have also been architectural plans for the new temple, which is being worked on. For all practical purposes, almost everything is in place for the third temple to be built, but the progress remains blocked as long as the Temple Mount is under Muslim supervision. Up to this point, one of the most important stumbling blocks to the effort to rebuild is the inability to purify the priests who will serve in the temple, as well as the area where the temple is to be built. To achieve either of these goals, the ashes of a perfect red heifer are as important as the temple itself. Since AD 70, all the Jewish people have been considered ceremonially unclean, and the Temple Mount itself is also deemed unclean. According to Numbers chapter 9 and verses 5 to 7, the biblical requirement for cleanliness states that Jewish people must avoid any contact with a deceased creature or person. This includes moving away from contact with anyone who has been in contact with the deceased. If a contact like that occurs, a person must be cleansed by being sprinkled with water that is mixed with the ashes of a red heifer. Since the destruction of the temple in AD 70, none of these mixtures have been available for performing this ceremonial cleansing. As a result, all Jewish people around the world are ritually unclean. Without the ashes of a red heifer, there is no means to achieve ceremonial cleanliness, and this includes today's priests who are trained to serve in the next temple. Before the restoration of temple services can take place, it is very important to get the ashes of a red heifer. This has been one of the primary objectives of the Temple Institute since its founding in 1987. Jewish rabbis have long taught that for a red heifer to qualify as unblemished, all its hairs must be entirely red. So a red heifer with a single hair of a different color is disqualified from use. In 1997 and again in 2002, red heifers were born in Israel that initially met these stringent requirements. However, the two eventually developed white hairs as they matured, which got them disqualified from being used. Fast forward to the 15th of September 2022, when 5 young red heifers were brought into Israel from Texas. The Temple Institute is optimistic that one of these heifers will allow them to secure the ashes necessary for the ritual cleansing ceremony. Later on, one of those heifers got disqualified, while the other 4 still meet the requirements till today. Another requirement for the red heifer is that they must sacrifice it at the correct age. Once a heifer gets to 2 years and 1 month old, you can sacrifice it at any time during its 3rd year. Since these heifers were born in October 2021, they became eligible for sacrifice in November 2023. According to rabbinic studies and specifications, the heifers are now within the time frame during which one of them could be slaughtered for the purpose of obtaining its ashes. However, an issue has arisen due to the ongoing war in Gaza. The implications of this conflict on plans to sacrifice one of the red heifers are uncertain. The Temple Institute has been secretive about its activities, making it difficult to ascertain how the situation may affect their efforts. 100 days after Hamas carried out its brutal massacre of 1,200 Israelis on the 7th of October 2023, a spokesman for Hamas gave a speech which was an objection to the presence of the red heifers in Israel. Hamas claims that Israel's possession of the red heifers constitutes an act of aggression. For a few decades, Palestinians have expressed concerns that Israel might make an attempt to take over the Temple Mount and dismantle the Muslim structures located there. It seems likely that the spokesman was trying to fan the flames of anger among the Palestinian population. It's also important to note that the red heifers were not the catalyst for the conflict. Hamas has been engaged in attacks against Israel for over 2 decades, persistently aiming to destroy the state. Apart from the developments of the wars, we are now in the period in which one of the heifers could be sacrificed and burnt. Once it happens, the Temple Institute would be able to mix the ashes with water, facilitating the ritual purification of the priests and the temple grounds. Looking into the Bible and rapture, there is nowhere in the Bible that we find a passage that combines the ashes of a red heifer with the rapture. There is also no actual indication that preparations for the Third Temple are tied to the rapture in any way, even though some Jews believe otherwise. It's important to note that the Temple Institute has been preparing for the construction of the Third Temple for over 35 years. After the ashes of a red heifer have been obtained, several more years, or maybe a decade or more, could pass before the rapture occurs. We simply do not know what happens. However, we can believe that the existence of the red heifers represents a significant development for Jerusalem and Israel. For the people who are eager to build the Third Temple, this brings them one step closer. The Bible indicates that a temple will indeed be rebuilt on the Temple Mount. References such as Daniel chapter 9 and verse 27, Matthew chapter 24 and verses 15 to 18, and 2 Thessalonians chapter 2 and verse 4 make it clear that at the midpoint of the tribulation, the Antichrist will enter the temple, sit in the Holy of Holies, and declare himself to be God. These passages confirm that a temple will eventually stand on the Temple Mount. When and how that will occur remains uncertain. Many pieces for the future temple have already been assembled. Once the Temple Institute gets the ashes of a red heifer, that will be a significant piece of the puzzle. However, the biggest obstacle is the fact that the Temple Mount is still under the control of the Muslims, and as long as this situation remains, it will be impossible for the Third Temple to be constructed. We can accurately state that we are getting closer to the end times, but the extent of that closeness remains unknown. While we should avoid speculating that the rapture might be imminent, we can take joy in the fact that it will happen soon. Events are unfolding and coming together in ways that are intriguing. Anything that contributes to the reality of the Third Temple is prophetically significant. Each development, including the existence of the red heifers, serves as a reminder of the biblical promises and prophecies regarding the future. While the timeline is unclear, the progress being made is noteworthy and encourages hope among those who follow these events closely. The red heifer was believed to be the one that broke the camel's back as regards prophecies concerning Jerusalem, but that is not all. There is one more thing we need to explore, which is related to the return and revival of Israel. Let's look into that quickly. The return of Israel as a sign of fulfilled prophecy. Imagine a moment about 2,000 years in the making, an actual moment of homecoming after centuries of exile, dispersion, and heartbreaking persecution. That moment arrived on the 14th of May, 1948, when David Ben-Gurion, an important figure in Israel's history as a founder and its first prime minister, declared the re-establishment of the State of Israel. This was more than just a political event. It was prophecy coming to life, evidence of toughness after enduring the challenges in Russia and Eastern Europe, and the unspeakable tragedy of the Holocaust. David's declaration was also a shocking event fulfilling ancient prophecies. The return of the Jewish people to the land promised to them is seen by many as more than just a historical event. It's also the revealing of a divine plan. This moment is viewed as the fulfillment of promises, as written in the Bible, revealing the enduring covenant and setting the stage for the return of the Messiah and the establishment of God's kingdom on earth, seeing the divine order in heaven. For a few centuries, Jewish people have always wanted to return to their homeland, a longing deeply rooted in their history and faith. The establishment of Israel is seen by many as a miraculous event, paving the way for further prophetic fulfillments. This return from exile is a prominent theme in the Hebrew Bible, with prophets like Jeremiah, Isaiah, and Ezekiel foretelling the restoration of Israel to their land. These prophecies offered hope during times of captivity and dispersion, emphasizing God's faithfulness to his covenant. The establishment of Israel is thus seen as a significant step in the fulfillment of these prophecies, marking a new chapter in the history of the Jewish people. When the Allied forces liberated the concentration camps, some must have found themselves reflecting on the profound question God posed to Ezekiel. Son of man, can these bones live? The establishment of Israel is an incredible manifestation of God's divine plan, which unfolds in real time and fulfilling age-old promises right before our very eyes. Long ago, the prophet Isaiah asked, "Can a country be born in a day, or a nation be brought forth in a moment?" The answer is a resounding yes, and that moment came in 1948. On that day, Israel rose from the devastation of the Holocaust, and this gave hope and spirit from the dry bones of Europe. It was also on this day that the President of the United States, Harry S. Truman, recognized the State of Israel, making the United States the first country to do so. This act was not just formal recognition, it marked the beginning of a new chapter in history. As of the 14th of May, Israel has entered another year, continuing to fulfill the prophecies spoken by Ezekiel centuries earlier. Today, Israel stands as a testament to the miraculous journey of a people returning to their homeland, embodying the fulfillment of prophecy in a way that inspires and uplifts. It is evident that the Supreme Being has preserved Israel through the ages, as Jeremiah reminds us in chapter 35 and verses 35 to 37. This signifies that the survival of Israel and the Jewish people is woven into the very fabric of creation itself. Despite centuries of dispersion and relentless persecution, the people of Israel have been preserved. A beautiful song resonates with this truth. Od Avinu Chai, Am Yisrael Chai. Our Father lives, therefore Israel lives. This declaration speaks to the essence of Israel and the Jewish people as a living testament to the existence of God and the trustworthiness of His word. Since the moment recorded in the 3rd chapter of Genesis, where the enemy of God first appears, he has been persistent in his efforts to undermine God's will for His creation and His children. In Luke chapter 21 and verse 24, Jesus echoes the message in Matthew, saying that Jerusalem will be trampled by the Gentiles until the times of the Gentiles are fulfilled. We find ourselves living in these times, where Gentiles lead the true church of the Messiah. The reunification of Jerusalem under Jewish control during the Six-Day War in 1967 is often viewed as a crucial step toward fulfilling this prophecy, though its complete realization awaits Yeshua's second coming. The re-establishment of Israel signals the onset of significant prophetic events for both the Church and Israel: the rapture, the rise of the Antichrist, and the second coming of Jesus. This is what is symbolized by the fig tree blossoming. Yeshua urged us to be vigilant about the signs, and Israel's rebirth as a nation is a central aspect of the last days. As the end of the world draws closer, God's prophetic intention for Israel and her calling to shine as a light to the nations also continues to shine. The struggle between the seed of the serpent and the seed of the woman is still here, and the highest proof of this conflict will be the Antichrist, who will lead a united force against Israel. This battle will ultimately pave the way for Jesus' return, which will bring in the millennial kingdom, according to research. What do you think about Jerusalem's hidden prophecy and what the rabbis announced? Let us know in the comments below. Thanks for watching. To enjoy more exciting videos, click play on the video on your screen. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you get notified when a new video drops.